Hello, hello, book lovers. Welcome to episode 3 of the Biblio Files. I am your host, Jack in the Bookstack, and I am here with Michelle's Library. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Now, I knew that when I started this series that Michelle had to be a guest because she is one of my first BookTube buddies. I think we were chatting on Instagram. I think we were friends on Instagram or Bookstagram first. And then I started the channel, and she's been helping me kind of troubleshoot all the different BookTube things, and we talk about recommendations. So I knew that we had to have this chat and go through some bookish questions. So thank you so much for being on this episode with us.
Thanks for inviting me. I remember, so you invited me to do this, but I was like, I remember when I first talked to Jack, because you posted a story and you were like, should I start a BookTube? And I was like, I got this. And I was like, immediately start a BookTube. And you were like, really? And I was like, yes.
Yes. And you were like always such a big supporter, commenting on my videos and showing me the love. So yeah, Michelle's one of the reasons I started doing it and kept doing it due to the encouragement. So thanks for making it such a fun environment.
It is fun though, right? Yeah. How creative you can get and stuff.
Yes. And how we can all read the same stuff, but then get really creative and different with our interpretations of it. So yeah, I really love the BookTube space. So it's been awesome. And we have a great showing so far. Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. There's the bald booktuber who was a guest in episode 2. Hi, everybody. So excited that you could join. Hi, Michelle. All right. So first and foremost, Michelle, will you give us an intro to your BookTube channel? What do you talk about primarily? What can people expect to find on your channel?
Sure. Yeah. So I have actually been on BookTube. August will be my 5th year.
Wow.
Happy anniversary. Thanks. Yeah. Not a lot of people know this, but I actually, oh my God, Lexi's here. When I started my channel, I was Michelle Reads YA, and I was like a completely YA channel until 2021, I think. I can't even remember. When I switched over to Michelle's Library, and now I kind of stopped reading YA completely. But I mostly read romance, thrillers, and horror on my channel. And I do a ton of vlogs. So my most recent vlog was Summerween, where I read one book for Summerween. So really killed it. I really killed it.
I'm shocked.
I'm kind of in a romance mood because of summer. So I failed, yeah. But that's fine.
It's a seasonal thing. I get it.
Yeah.
And you go through different moods. That's what's awesome about reading so many different genres, like horror and thrillers. And then you can switch to romance and just kind of, there's something for whatever mood you're in.
And I am a mood reader, but also I try to keep up with my Libby holds. So it is.
And you can't predict when those come in, right?
No, sometimes and I always start them. Yes, I start them 3 days before they expire, and it's the worst. So it's very scary.
I'm always extending the hold. I'm not ready yet, but I don't want to say goodbye.
It's hard.
Yeah. All right. Well, if this is your first time tuning in to the Biblio Files, I am going to ask Michelle 10 questions. She did have these ahead of time, so she was able to prepare a little bit. We definitely want to hear from you guys as well in the comments, in the chat here if you're watching live. If you have answers to these questions, or if you have any additional questions you want to ask Michelle, would love to hear from you. So we're going to have those 10 questions, and then there are 5 bookish would you rather questions that Michelle has not seen yet that I'm going to ask her. But, on the last episode, Scott said they were too easy. So
okay.
I know. I need some ideas for some.
I did not watch that part of Scott's video, so I was
okay. So
then I left.
I thought that'd be the one section you would want to watch to see.
No, I was like,
what am I in for?
Let's just go on the fly. Why not?
Oh, he said only one was easy.
Okay.
I asked him, would you rather read in the mountains or on the beach? And he said that was easy.
That's pretty easy for me too.
Yeah. I'm mountains. What are you, Michelle?
Mountains, yeah.
Okay. See, it was easy for him too. He said beach.
Okay.
So. All right. Well, we're still going to start with some easy questions. The first 3 questions are kind of like a get to know you as a reader. So first and foremost, what are you reading right now?
I'm currently reading 3 books right now. I'll go through them very fast. I am reading an arc of Iris Kelly Doesn't Date, which is the last in the Bright Falls series by Ashley Herring Blake. Lesbians. Yeah. So, and then I am reading Rebecca Yaros's newest one, In the Likely Event, and I'm not liking it.
Really?
So, I'm buddy reading it.
That one?
It's romance.
Okay.
I'm buddy reading it with my friend Monica, and it's feeling like a 3-star for me. I think she's liking it more than I am. And then I just started today the book club pick for the Pyramid Book Club, which is No One's Home, which is an indie horror. So,
2 romance.
I'm liking it. I'm not supposed to tell anyone because Lexi's here, but I am liking it.
Okay, Lexi, ignore that part then.
You didn't hear it. I'm only 20% in. If that's
there's still time for it to turn. I mean, tune into the Pyramid Book Club to see what Michelle really thinks of it. Awesome. All right. Well, question number 2, and you kind of touched on this when you were talking about your channel, but what is your most read genre and subgenre? So you said thrillers, horror, and romance. How about subgenres? Because I know you're always my go-to for like rom-com romance. So what kind of subgenres do you find yourself reading the most?
So when I read romance, they are usually like the cartoon cover rom-com, like Tessa Bailey, Talia Hibbert, those kind of things. But every once in a while, like I did Smut Den and I read dark romance, which is something I don't like pick up a lot, but when I do, I really like it. So I really like dark romance. But the thing with dark romance is that I need consent, which is like kind of
in that genre. Genre. Yeah.
Like, so I will, if someone I know has read it, I will ask them if there is consent. Like that's my only thing about dark romance. I really don't like.
Yeah, I'm the same. I need enthusiastic consent. I think it's better when
okay. Yeah. And sometimes like dark romance doesn't have to be like all dark. Like dark romance is just like, it's not a rom-com. That's like really what it is. It just has to have like a happily ever after and then stuff. But like sometimes they get like too dark. That's not my jam. For thrillers, I really like psychological thrillers. I don't really like domestic thrillers. However, one of my favorite books ever is The Push, and that's considered a domestic thriller. So like I Contain Multitudes. I don't know.
There's always an exception, right? There's always an exception when you say you dislike something. You're like, oh, except for this.
Yeah, so. Because her Ashley Aldrin's book that just came out was her second book called The Whispers, and that is also a domestic thriller, and I did not like that. So like, I'm back on the don't like domestic thrillers train.
Similar though, because The Push, I feel like what's different about that as a domestic thrillers, I typically think of something happened to the child or something happened to the spouse, and you know, who's to blame in that circle. But this one is really about a woman who can't connect to her child and she thinks her child is evil. Yeah. Right. So that's The Push. So how did her other book, was it more the traditional?
It was traditional. It was just like neighbors cheating with each other. And I just, like, I don't care about that. Yeah.
It's the same. It's kind of like it gets cookie cutter. It seems like after a while.
Absolutely. Like I had definitely read stuff like that before, you know, like, also there was some, like, I don't have a trigger warning for miscarriage, but like it was brutal in The Whispers. So I just like I do not recommend that.
Yeah, that's a good trigger. I feel like that would be triggering for a lot of people.
I like went in because I got an arc of it and I went in completely not knowing anything. I was just very excited to have an arc of it. And I was like, what am I reading? Hello? Yeah.
I can agree with you on that. And, you know, it's funny because we're talking about, you know, typically I don't like these things, but you know, one of my favorite books is a domestic thriller, The Last Mrs. Parrish.
I love that one.
Yeah, I felt like I was also like the first domestic thriller I ever read, so it was completely mind-blowing to me. A more tenured reader might not think
I really liked it. I don't know. I gave it 4 stars. And I remember you recommending it to me. So
I
was
remember,
like,
I think I threatened you. I was like,
you
if
did.
you don't love this, I
You're like,
don't know
hello,
if
have
I
you
can
read
please
this?
you.
And I was like, no. But I read it. It's for a video.
Yeah, Jack in the Book Suck, adding a star to every book's ratings through BookTube threats. Well, as we're talking about favorites, what would you say is a favorite book of all time for you?
God, this changes like weekly. But this book has been my like top tier book probably for like a year now because I reread it last year, and that's 11/22/63 by Stephen King.
Ooh, you said you reread it recently?
I reread it last year or in 2021. Pretty recently. And I am not someone who rereads a lot. But I reread 11/22/63 and it was like even better the second time around.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, 11/22/63 has like everything I didn't think I like. Like I didn't think that I would really like time travel. It has to do with history, which hello, like that doesn't really sound like me.
Like it's so off brand for you.
It really is. But the character work that Stephen King has done in 11/22/63 is just like I don't know if he'll ever be able to do it again. Like, and there's even romance in it, which he like has said several times. Like, I don't write romance, and I like if you haven't read 11/22/63, I'm going to need everyone to go read it. It's like a 21-hour audiobook, which is very long for me, but absolutely love that book.
Now, what speed did you listen to it at?
The first time I listened to it back in like I was still in Maryland, so probably 2014. I listened to it on a CD in my car, so that's one time speed.
Wow.
I think there were 15 CDs. The second
really
time,
20 hours.
No joke. The second time I listened to it was the first time I got like on Libby and realized that Libby went up to 3 times speed, but I was up to 2.5 times speed. So that was the first book I listened to at 2.5 times. So,
okay. Any advice for Dawn, who says they want to read this one too, but feels like the size of the books intimidates them?
I just would like to let you know that you will not regret picking up 11/22/63. I know that starting books is the hardest part of reading, but this one starts off right away. Like he time travels almost immediately. So you're not like it doesn't take him a long time to get you into the story and back to I think he starts in the 50s. It's like 58. So it's really cool the world he creates within a world that already happened.
Yeah, and I think I liked the elements in this one of, before we get to the main plot, which is, and it's not a spoiler, it's the whole thing of the book, prevent the JFK assassination, right? But there's some experiences that build up before that plot line picks up that were so engaging because it's elements of like the butterfly effect, right? Like what changed when he goes back in time, what change does he make then thinking he will improve things only to find out he made things worse. So,
and then like there's also a mystery of like the red card man who like you never really figure out what he's all about. But like it keeps you on your toes because every time he goes back in time, it like is only like a minute in the real world. It's just it's very fascinating what he did, and I absolutely love it. And there is a Hulu adaptation of it, which I thought was really, really well done. It is with James Franco, who like, but I thought the adaptation was beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, Scott's kind of
Scott knows.
I know you guys are like the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. There are also Easter eggs to other books, which is true. So if you're a King fan, that's always fun with his books, is the Easter eggs he does. Hi, Luna's Library. So happy you made this one. Yeah, that's a really good choice. And it's so interesting because like you were saying, there's so many things that you wouldn't typically gravitate towards in books. History, emphasis on history, and it's kind of marketed as like a sci-fi.
It is
time travel.
It is.
Yeah, so it's very different, but it's an incredible book.
I remember I picked up the CDs right at the library. And I remember reading the back of it, and it was like, whatever the dude's name is, horrible names, it was like travels back in time. And I was like, oh God, like that didn't, I was like, this is gonna suck. But I was like, whatever. I had a really long drive to work when I lived in Maryland and stuff. So I was like, if I don't like it, I'll just whatever. No. I remember I hate driving. I still hate driving. And I could not wait to drive home and like drive to work and like drive because all I wanted to do was listen to this book. And like to this day, I still remember almost everything about this book except for Jake, whatever his last name. So
except for his name.
The character's name don't matter. It's fine.
What made you read it then when you recognized it didn't have things that you liked in it? What made you still start listening to it?
I was really starting to get into reading at this point. I was probably 24. So I really wanted to pick up a Stephen King. And I have a fascination with the assassination. I don't know why. Like, we've all watched the videos of it because we can't escape it at this point. So I was like, well, it has something that I am interested in, which is the assassination of JFK. So like, that could be an interesting aspect. I'm not sure about the time travel thing, but this is the book that got me into Stephen King. I hadn't read a Stephen King before this. Oh, wow. And, you know, even though it was via audiobook, I could tell that his writing was just so good. Like, I was so engaged the whole time. So like to this day, I love 11/22/63.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great answer. I did not expect that to be your answer. I don't think I've seen any of your videos, like talking about your favorites. I feel like I remember you saying you've read it, but I didn't know it was one of your favorites. So
yeah,
cool. All right. Well, then going kind of to the opposite end of the spectrum, what is a hyped book or a hyped series that you will not read? And there's the specific reason I wanted to ask you this question. So after you answer, I have more to say.
Okay. This is gonna be YA, but I still feel like it's very popular. And that is the Cruel Prince series. This kind of came out the same time as ACOTAR came out, and I can't say ACOTAR because I have read the first book of ACOTAR. So like, so sorry. But I was supposed to read The Cruel Prince for my old book club, which was a YA-centered book club, and I remember reading the first page, and it was about how there was no ketchup in Fairyland. I will never forget it. It's ingrained in my brain. And I closed that book right there at that sentence. Oh. I personally am not into fairies. I can't do it.
Well, and so I've heard you say that before, that you're not into fantasy in particular. But then you made a liar out of yourself because I saw on Bookstagram that you read The Fourth Wing and you loved it. I think you rated it 5 stars. And I think, am I wrong, but did you change your profile picture on Bookstagram to be holding the Fourth Wing?
I'm holding Fourth Wing.
And that is a fantasy romance, but I personally think it leans more fantasy than it does romance.
It does.
So there's dragons, there's magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right. So I would say, if I were to answer this question for you, I would have said, well, Michelle will never read fantasy or fantasy romance, but there you are.
Yeah. So I will be completely honest with you. It was a lot of the FOMO. It really was. And that gets to me a lot, but normally with fantasy, I just like let it like go out of my brain and I'm like, whatever. But then some of my best friends were like, it reminds me of Divergent. And I was like, huh? Because I love Divergent. I have reread Divergent a couple times, just Divergent, not Insurgent or Allegiant. So I was very nervous to pick up Fourth Wing. But I knew I had the audiobook and I did have the physical book in front of me. So that is how I read immersively. So I knew I couldn't like mess up because I had both of them. But I absolutely loved Fourth Wing. My favorite part was the dragons.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was obsessed with the dragons.
Yeah, I mean, that's the common feedback with that, like, because the dragons are so like snarky and funny and have such attitude, but I love kind of the culture around them and how they're so unforgiving typically, right? They're like, oh, don't look at them the wrong way or they'll just cook you.
Yeah, like people were dying left and right because of these dragons, and I was like, way to go, dragons. Like,
yeah,
I loved the way they communicated, and I thought that they did that really well in the audiobook as well. It was just like a different voice for how the dragons communicated, and then like the plot twist of her and the dragons was really good. Like I didn't see that coming, but like I don't read a lot of fantasy, so like I saw anything, I didn't see anything
all
coming,
new.
really.
Yeah.
It was all new to me. But I probably wouldn't have read it if it weren't for all of the hype and then like people being like, I think you would actually like this. So there were no fairies, so we were good.
So is that the thing then? Like you don't want to read fantasy with fairies. So it sounds like ACOTAR will be out. You're not going to revisit ACOTAR?
No, I absolutely did not like ACOTAR, and I read this back in 2017. And that is when I was really into reading and YA, and I was just like, I'm not into fantasy, and that's okay.
But maybe it's changed now. See, I'm trying to get you to A Court of Silver Flames because that's my favorite in the series, but that's like, I don't know, number 4 or 5. So I have to convince you pretty hard to read up to that point.
I've been thinking about picking up the serpent wings and something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I do. You might like that.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, but like, I'm also like, I don't know. See, Sabrina can't do fairies either. It's not like I would never judge anyone for what they read. It's just like something that doesn't appeal to me specifically, you know?
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. Everyone has things they like and dislike in books, so that's fair.
And also, I have read ACOTAR, and I just thought Feyre was so stupid, to be honest.
Okay, well, I think that for most fantasy romance, I can't stand the female main character, so I'm not going to argue with you on that one.
Why can't you figure out this riddle? Please.
Well, it wasn't even the riddle for me. It was the fact that, like, so the reason I liked ACOTAR is because it's a human entering the Fae world.
Yeah.
And so you learn about Fae, like, it's like Fae for beginners 101, fantasy 101, right? So I liked that. But then I'm like, girl, you're being told that there is something magical that wants to hurt you out there. Why do you keep insisting to go, like, poke at it? Can't you just do what you're told? Like, I don't like being told what to do either, but in that situation, yes, sir. Like,
but that's what the Cruel Prince is too, in my opinion. It's a mortal going into the fairy world, and like I felt like I had already tried it with ACOTAR, and I just couldn't do it again.
Okay,
so I didn't have to get more patient.
At least you kind of know like what areas in fantasy that you can dive into more, and I think if Serpent and Wings of Night might be a good one because it's vampires.
That's what I'm saying. I love vampires.
Yeah.
So I have to talk to my friend Rye, who would be like, yes or no, try it.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to stay tuned to Michelle's library to see if you give it a shot and what you think.
See. My Rebecca Yaros video is going up this Friday. So
does it include Fourth Wing? Are you doing like the one you're reading now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to. I'm definitely gonna be interested in seeing that one.
I can't believe I read it, but yeah.
The reader who said she never wanted to read fantasy again reads Fourth Wing.
It was great.
There's a reason it's so popular. It's past, like, was looking at all my books, like, on Goodreads, ranked by ratings, and it's, like, past Brandon Sanderson. I think it's past Harry Potter. Like, it is just huge.
I think they did
Kindle Unlimited.
It is on Kindle, not Fourth Wing, but the Serpent Wings, whatever that one, is on Kindle Unlimited. So, like, I wouldn't have to pay for it, right? Because I'm already paying for Kindle Unlimited. So that would help me. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I think Fourth Wing, or the publishers of Fourth Wing, did an excellent job at putting the sprayed edges, because they were like, these are beautiful. Of course, everyone wants it. I wanted it. I got it. Like...
And you don't read fantasy. You bought it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was marketed very, very well. They all deserve big fat bonuses in that marketing team.
They were so smart. And they're doing that with a ton of their fantasy books that are coming out this year. So they're really, really smart.
I hope so, because the sequel doesn't have stenciled edges. It has sprayed edges. But I'm like, this is a rip. This is not what I signed up for.
I want the whole set now.
Yeah, they need to match. Well, and that kind of is a great segue into question number 5. How has Bookish social media changed you and your reading? Because it sounds like you were influenced to read Fourth Wing because of Bookish social media. But in general, how would you say that this has changed you?
Sure. So before last year on my channel specifically, I was doing a lot of sit down videos and like 0 vlogs. I would do like a weekly reading vlog, and that way I could continue mood reading because that's what I like to do. Mm-hmm. And then the middle of last year, I started doing theme vlogs. So that really changed the way I read because I would have to focus on the books that were for the video. So now I kind of consider myself a TBR reader with like mood reading on the side. Like right now I'm mood reading romance and I'm not reading one thing for a video right at the moment.
That's freeing.
It feels great. I'm not doing anything for a video right now, but it's because I have like 7 videos done. So I like have the opportunity to take a little break and do that. So the way that BookTube is like pushing vlogs right now has made me change the way I read because BookTube really likes vlogs. So you do the vlogs. It also has made me be friends with a lot of people, and these people are like, hey, why don't you read Fourth Wing? So if it weren't for my friends, I probably wouldn't have done it. Like once I heard Divergent, that was it for me. I absolutely love Divergent. Okay.
Did you agree with that assessment? Do you think it is like Divergent?
I do think the beginning was with like the sectors and stuff, definitely. And the very first scene, this is like 20 pages in, this is not a spoiler. They're literally like on their judgment day or whatever. It's the same thing as Divergent. Like they're going to figure out what they're doing for the rest of their lives. And that is Divergent. So I love that. Instagram doesn't really change anything for me. Plus, I'm like really bad at taking pictures, so like it doesn't matter. I do Instagram for fun. Instagram is my fun thing, and then I take BookTube as like my job. So I always am thinking like a couple months ahead of what content is coming out next. So I feel like that has definitely changed what and how I read. Also, so I used to be a whole YA channel, but then YA just wasn't working for me anymore, which makes sense because I am 33 years old. So like that is different. So it has BookTube and Bookstagram specifically have helped me find books that I think I'm going to like, especially in the romance and horror genre. I was reading thrillers before, even when I was reading YA. But I'm pretty new to horror, and I didn't really like romance before like last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, it's a whole new genre for you. That's probably why you're reading so much romance, because it's all like,
I like read it all
the romance books.
Yeah.
So you said that you plan out months in advance. How far out are your reads planned? Like, do you know through the end of the year what books that you're going to read?
Yeah. So all around, you can't see it over here. I have piles of books on my bookshelves, and I also have 3 book carts, and they are full of piles of books that are for videos. So they are just whatever is next in line on Libby is what I am reading next, and that goes into a folder on my phone for the vlog clip, and that's how I do that. So everything is planned out. Plus, like, I know what like readathons. If readathons are happening, then I plan those out as well. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, so do you have like how many months out do you think you're planned?
I'm planned to the end of the year.
Oof.
Yeah,
I can relate. I think I looked at my calendar, like where I jot down all my ideas. I think I'm planned through the first 2 weeks of January.
Yeah, exactly. Like Well, I used to do like 3 videos a week, and that included a weekly reading vlog, but I don't do those anymore because now I'm just focusing on theme vlogs. But I feel like pushing it back to 1 video a week has really helped me also be able to mood read again, because the last thing I want to do as a creator is get into a slump.
Yeah, that's kind of a buzzkill when that happens, right?
Yeah, like what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Yeah, you do anything.
Yeah, see, it's kind of organization, Luna's library, but also like there's just so many books I want to read, and it gives me so much anxiety that I can't read them all right now.
Yes.
So if I think I can't pick it up right now, but hey, in August, I want to do a theme on dark academia. So this would fit in great there. And if I schedule it, like helps ease my own anxiety of like, I can't read them all right now. There's like 200, 250 on my TBR on Goodreads. So
that's exactly what I do. If I know there's a book that I want to pick up, I will put it in a video. So I pick it up.
Exactly. Yeah. It helps. It helps. All right. Number 6, when you're reading a book, what's most important to you? The characters, the plot, the tone, the world building or the setting, the chemistry between the characters? What's most important?
So I would never say world building.
I know that's kind of more of like a fantasy. That's why I did world building / setting.
I like to say that I'm a all vibes kind of girl. That's how I rate things, based on vibes only. If I liked the book, it's gonna get a high rating. I do care about writing. I'm not gonna say I don't. Like, if the writing is not good, then it probably will affect my enjoyment of it, right? Like, if I'm so focused on how I'm not vibing with the writing, it's probably going to affect my enjoyment. But I really am vibes only, and I am this way now because I used to be a really, really, really critical reviewer, and I wasn't having any fun. And I was like, this is my only hobby. What are you doing? Why aren't you having fun? So I completely switched my mindset. And I am telling you, not only do I read more, but I have so much more fun reading books. And if I don't like a book, I just don't finish it. You know?
Perfect. Yes. So like how long do you give it before you DNF it?
I consider 50% of the book fully read. I feel like you're the same way, right?
I am. Yep. I
have I try to get to 50% if I want to mark it down as read, but like I usually know within the first couple of chapters, and then I'm just like, I gotta go read literally anything else right now. So to answer this question, it's literally all vibes for me. Like,
just maybe like tone. I thought maybe tone, because like. And it's so funny. And I thought of this question because my own answer has changed. And I always hear people talking about being like a character-driven reader or a plot-driven. But I'm like, I care about how the book makes me feel.
Yes.
Like and pairing the tone with my mood is really what helps me enjoy a book.
Yeah, I just want to pick up a book and have a good time. You know? If I'm not having a good time, I'm going to DNF that book and pretend like it never happened. But like, I feel like I know my book taste more now than ever. And like, I'm not going to pick up a book if I don't think I'm going to like it. Like, I figured I was going to like Fourth Wing, which is why I picked it up, you know?
Yeah, you don't pick up a book thinking you're going to hate it.
Yes.
Which probably helps when you're talking about being a critical reader. And I think you said this in one of your videos, but you've gotten to know your reading taste so much better that you're more likely to pick up one that's probably like 3 stars and up, unless it just throws a curveball at you, right? So I think that's really important. You know, pairing the book for like setting it up for success.
Yeah. And also, I think 3 stars is a good book. Like 3 stars is I still had a good time. It's just like maybe not the most amazing thing I've ever read. I probably will forget about it next week, but like in the moment, I had a good time.
Yeah. That's kind of how I approach it too. 3 stars is like, I liked it. 4 stars, really strong, like bordering love. And then 5 stars is love.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Andrew Scott is surprised that we have our books planned throughout the year. Andrew Scott, I will tell you what to read next. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to struggle with the decisions. Just tune in every week to Jack in the Bookstack and Michelle's library, and we will set you up with what to read next.
And I think it's fun because I know you read literally everything. Like when I first started to watch your videos, you were like, one day you were like smut, and the next week you were like high fantasy, and then you were like historical fiction, and I was like, what is happening?
And then let's talk about War and Peace.
Yes, like Tolstoy, and I was like, oh my god, I could never. But
it's all about pairing the book with the mood. There's so many great books out there, and you don't have to be boxed into one genre.
No.
There's so many great things.
I have started to get into historical fiction.
What's a recent one that you've read?
Actually, it was Rebecca Yarros. It was The Things We Leave Unfinished. I read that one, and so I could read Fourth Wing to compare, because I was like, how the fuck did this lady get into fantasy? That's what my whole video was about. And it's half modern day and half historical fiction during World War II, and I absolutely loved it.
Ooh, I think, have you read or have you heard of what's it called, Before We Were Yours?
Oh, I know the cover. It's two girls sitting on suitcases. Yeah, I will read that.
That might be a good one to check out when you're in the mood for a very moving, I don't want to say heart-wrenching. I don't think you'll cry, but it's about kids that were pretty much kidnapped from their families and then put up for adoption to other families. And then their true biological families are trying to get them, but then their new adopted parents are like, hey, we love them too. It's a really complicated story, but it's like based on real events, even though the story is fictional. And so it's emotional and it's about kids, but it's really good.
Have you heard of, this reminds me of Orphan Train. Have you heard of that one?
And
it reminds me of that. It's like the same concept. This came out a very long, like I read this, I think when I still lived in Maryland. So 10 years ago. But I like still remember that one. And that's historical fiction. But yeah, I'm starting to get into historical fiction, which I never ever thought I would. But I'm starting to get into history. I kind of wanted to be a history major, but I never wanted to like be a teacher. So I was like, I don't want to. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of, historical fiction is good because you learn something while you're being entertained.
Yeah.
So it kind of combines
a lot
of
educational
benefits. Yeah. Unlike this smut that we read.
Whatever, I love smut.
See, Sabrina's with us, planning out so far in advance. Organization is key. All right, question 7. All right, so what is a pet peeve of yours in spicy scenes?
So we talked about this a little bit, but I need consent. And that's usually just a thing in dark romance. So like I read a ton of rom-coms. But the thing that I cannot stand in a spicy scene, and it's not, is I really don't like pet names. Like I just read a book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That was gonna be
nothing serious. It's just pet names. I just read Wildfire, which is the sequel to Icebreaker. I think it comes out in August. I read an arc of it, and he called her sweetheart, and I was just like, like they were doing it, and he's like, "You go, sweetheart," and I'm like, oh, God. Please shut up.
Yeah, I don't even know if sweetheart, because that's like a term of endearment.
I hate it.
Like, when they're woodland creatures, like like was it the Haunting Adeline books, which don't read.
It's on deck. You told me to. It's on deck.
I take it back. I take it back. That consent is just not there. It is.
Oh, okay. Well, it is for a dark romance vlog.
Okay. Well, you've been warned. But
okay,
yeah, that was my
first. Warning me.
Well, when you read it, think this was the first dark romance I ever tried reading, and you're gonna be like, "There's a reason I DNF'd at." But he calls her Little Mouse.
What?
In the spicy scenes, and it creeps me out. And then there's another one. Den of Vipers. He calls her Little Bird. I can't do the woodland creature names.
I don't want to be called anything except my name. Thanks. It turns me off. I'm like,
yeah, it grows. Oh, you know what else is another bad one? When the names are something that makes the female younger.
Yes.
Like that's
why I don't like sweetheart, because like you call a 6-year-old sweetheart. You're like, hey, come here.
Yeah,
sweetheart.
You're right. It's kind of like childlike and condescending.
Yes, it's infanticide. You know what I'm trying to say. I don't like it. Like he did it a lot, and especially when they were like in the sweat scenes, and I was just like, it feels like he's talking to a 6-year-old, and I really didn't like it. So I don't like any sort of pet names during sex. Please don't.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
There was I don't know what the series is called, but the first book is Priest.
Yes.
And the second book is Sinner. Have you read those yet?
I haven't, but I just got Priest. I got the pretty cover one with the flowers.
Which makes no sense to the theme of the story, by the way.
Because it's beautiful.
So I bought books 2 and 3, and I read book 2, and it's an age gap. I can't remember how many years, but it's not that bad. But like, he talks about how he feels like an old man, and the age gap is such a big deal. But then he, like, when they're getting spicy, she has like knee-high socks on, and he's talking about how he loves that she looks younger. And I'm like, oh no. And then he talks to her like that too, like that she's younger, and I'm like, I can't.
It just like, I don't, it's nothing like nothing really bothers me about sex scenes. Like, they could do whatever they want, but it's as soon as they start calling each other stupid names at each other, then I'm out of it. I'm just like, oh yeah, oh god.
Kind of like scanning past it, skip forward. Tessa Bailey.
Yes, that was my first Tessa Bailey too, and I think I counted how many times she said "baby girl," and it was like 34.
See, that's just like, I hate when things are repeated. Like, that's way too repetitive. If it's repetitive terms or words, so that sounds really bad.
It was really, and like, I went in knowing that like she did that because it was getting all these reviews. But I was not prepared. Even when you read it yourself, you're just like, oh, what do you do?
Oh, that's horrible. But yeah, I think we have enthusiastic agreement with you on the pet names.
Okay, cool.
Authors, I hope you're watching our channels so you can know to stop writing those.
Yeah, I just want consent and no pet names. Okay.
And it's not too much to ask.
It's really not.
No. All right, number 8. Who is a character that you relate to the most?
So I thought about this one for literally so long, and I was like, I have no idea because I read like all over the board. However, there's this one YA book that I still to this day love. Like, I still consider it one of my favorite books ever, and it's called, oh god, I'm blanking. Hold on. The Unexpected Everything. And the main character's name is Andy. And Andy is the first child, like overachiever, like all of these things. And I'm just like, every time I read that book, I am just like, I am Andy, and this is why I love this book. It's by Morgan Matson. It is YA, and it's YA contemporary. But I think I liked this book so much because I saw myself in Andy so much because she is like all the things that I am. The only thing we didn't have in common is that she didn't read. And she started to get into audiobooks, and I was just like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you so this was, you said 5 years ago you were doing YA videos. Is that about the time frame that you read this, or did you read it when you were younger?
I read this it came out in 2016, and I read it in 2016, and I started my channel in 2018. Okay. So, but like at that point in time, I was only reading YA. But like, even though I was 26 reading this YA book, I was like, everything about Andy was me. Like, I don't know. It's hard to describe if you haven't read this book. It's a cute little YA book. It's huge. It's like 500 pages.
Wow. I hope it has big fonts. Usually YA, they have like
big font.
Okay.
Yeah, because the audiobook is only like 12 hours. But Andy is the daughter of a politician. So she is like very put in a box of like what she could do. And I feel like as the first child, whatever, the first child, I was the first one in my family to go to college. And that was just like expected of me. So I felt like all my life, things were just expected of me. Mm-hmm. And I felt that Andy felt the same way. So I used to reread that book every single summer until I like grew out of YA. But like, I still see myself in this character, and she is lovely. She is me. We are the same. It's 500 pages. I'm sorry. It's YA.
You like everybody how she pitches this book to us that we have to read it, and then she's like, "Oh, by the way, it's 500 pages."
If it makes you feel better, one of the characters like text just in emojis the whole time, and you have to try to figure out what she's saying, and it's really funny.
Okay, well, if it's 500 pages of that, it's just very perfect at that point. Okay. Awesome. All right, number 9. What book scared you the most?
Scared me. I'm gonna have 2 answers for this. Scared me the most. Picking up was The Stand by Stephen King, because it is his it is his largest book. It's over 1,000 pages. And the audiobook is 48 hours. Just like, what the fuck? You know?
And you did a reading vlog for that, right? Was it over a couple vlogs, or did you do a dedicated one?
It was it was during a weekly reading vlog, and I think it was 3 weeks. I think it took me 3 weeks. But the way I did it is that it wasn't the only book that I was reading. So I think I tried to read 100 pages a day.
That was it. Yes, I remember that now. Okay.
And I'm glad that I read it, but I was really scared to read it because we were in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, so like, makes it so much more real.
Yeah, reading a pandemic book in the middle of a pandemic really hits different. And especially the way The Stand starts. This is also not a spoiler, but the virus starts in like a factory. It's this thing that is released into the world from a factory, and they know this. And you know, the time that I was reading it, they were still like debating if COVID, like, how did COVID happen? And I'm just like, oh my God, like,
real.
Yeah. So I think I'm glad that I read it. And also I am kind of glad that I read it while we were still in the midst of COVID. But I did not think the book was scary, but I was scared of it, if that makes sense.
It was because it was realistic. Like, it was kind of, well, not realistic, but you could see the worst case scenario, how your real life could turn, or could have
it was pandemic. Gruesome. Like, the things that he wrote that happened to the people when the virus hit them was like very gross. I remember, I can like see it now talking to you, just like, and I think I was just scared of it because it is so long, and I like, my ideal length of a book is 300 pages.
That sounds perfect to me.
Yeah. So the fact that I was reading like a 1,900 page book, but I'm glad I did it. Like, I gave it 5 stars. I haven't seen either of the adaptations yet, because I just like don't watch TV or anything. But I would love to do that eventually, because I do think it was a really good book. And I know a lot of people were reading The Stand during like the height of COVID.
Oh yeah.
Because they could relate to it, even if you didn't want to, because it is a pandemic book. So I thought that that was really interesting. And I think it actually was a good time to read it.
It's interesting because I don't know when it came out. It's one of his earlier books, right?
I think it was 87.
But it had to become like, I wonder if it got back on the bestseller list or something during the pandemic, because wow, the timing of that is perfect.
I remember when like the world shut down, Stephen King on Twitter was like, no. He said something like sassy, and he was like, COVID did not start from a factory like The Stand. Please get out of my DMs. Like, he was pissed.
Well, I loved all the memes. It was like 2020, written by Stephen King.
I'm sure he was so mad.
He was mad all the way to the bank to cash those checks from those book sales. Yeah, no way. Yeah. No way. All right, so you said you had 2 books. That was the first one, right?
Is there another one that actually scared me was It by Stephen King.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll do it.
I've seen both, or I guess 3 adaptations of It, the 1991 and then the 2017 and 2018 ones, but they have nothing on the book. Like, the book goes into so much detail of Pennywise, and what Pennywise does to the town of Derry. And I read it physically, and it took me 6 weeks to read it physically, and it was like a slow torture. I thought I was going insane because I loved it so much, but I was just like, what am I reading? Like, what? And I know that he wrote it while he was in his cocaine era, but like, you can really tell. You can absolutely tell.
Yeah, because it's pretty wild. Without spoiling it, what do you think about it scared you the most? Like, what did you find so terrifying about it?
There's this one scene where it's like the bad kids. If you've seen the movie, I can't remember their names, but they go into the woods and they find this refrigerator. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Like, that's the scene that sticks out to me too.
Yeah. Just like I think I had to put the book away.
Yeah, have you seen Friends? Like, we gotta put the book in the freezer.
Yes.
Henry Bowers, that was it.
Henry Bowers and his crew. Yeah, they go in the woods and they see the refrigerator. And that, I will never get it out of my brain. Like, sometimes I'll just be like thinking about something and that'll pop in instead. And I'm like, I'm glad I'm not alone.
You're going to trigger all of us right now. We're just remembering this.
And that's never made it into any adaptation, and I know why.
It's too much. Well, and it's so funny. I don't know if I've told you this story. Some folks watching this, you might remember me saying this, but so I started reading it in 2020. And so it was in the pandemic, and I'm like, spooky season, this is going to be perfect. And I was doing the immersive read. So I had it physically and I was listening to it. Well, I broke my arm in October. And so I had just gotten home and I was on all these painkillers. And I'm like, I can't do anything. I'm kind of bored, but I'm kind of groggy. So I put on the audiobooks, and the hallucinations I had on these painkillers listening to this audiobook, because I would kind of doze off sleeping, but I'm still like aware of the book. So I was living the story.
No, that was a terrible idea.
Terrible idea. Or brilliant if you like horror. I don't like being that scared, but it has to be one of the scariest books I've read because of that experience.
It really is a scary book. And like the adaptations are good, but like they don't go into like all of his cocaine-ness. You know what I mean? Like, they just like, it doesn't touch upon the stuff that he touched upon when he wrote it,
And it's crazy because movies I find typically more terrifying because you have the music, right? The impending music that something's going to happen. You have the visuals that are worse than anything you could have imagined, and yet this book keeps that magic and that fear that the movie cannot capture.
It was nuts. Like, I would love to reread it, but like I have such fond memories of myself reading it the first time.
But you know what, though? I think that would be a great reread because knowing what's going to happen, you can pay more attention. Like, King is great with foreshadowing.
Yes.
And he is arguably sometimes overly detailed.
Oh yeah.
But you could spend more time enjoying the writing because, like, at least for me, I'm like skimming through the descriptions of Derry because I just want to get to the action. Like, I'm so excited to see what happens next. But knowing that, you can just take your time and enjoy the writing and like the build up to it and see if you could catch the foreshadowing. So it might be a really good reread.
I would also love to listen to that audiobook because I read it physically the first time. But yeah, I would love to do that. Also, the only thing I can think about besides the fridge, is the last like big thing that happens in it, and it's no paragraph breaks. It's just like, I don't know if you looked at it, but it's just like 3 pages of like no paragraph, and it's wild because I was like, I cannot stop reading. Like, and there's nowhere to stop. It was crazy.
Yeah. Those are 2 very classically great answers.
Thanks. I really like Stephen King, apparently.
All right, leaving the fear, now that we're all triggered by the refrigerator scene in it, what is your favorite video that you've done on BookTube?
So I'm going to cheat because it's not really a video, it's a series. But back in 2020, I came up with the Alphabet Project, where I pick 6 books off of my 6 shelves that start with the letter of the alphabet to work on my own TBR. And like I said, this started in 2020, and I'm on the letter P. And it's been so much fun. I've had people on Instagram, like, who I don't know at all, tag me, and they're like, I'm starting the alphabet project thanks to Michelle's idea. And I'm like, huh? Like, what? I think that's nuts that, like, people ran with my idea to, like, work on their own TBR as well. And it's been super fun. I have put it on the back burner because I haven't felt like reading those books, and that is my own fault. And it completely switched gears when I started unhauling a bunch of YA, because I think it started when I was looking at my shelves and like all of it was YA, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to read this anymore, so let me start this project and I can get them off my shelves. And then I just completely switched gears and changed my channel name and changed my reading taste. And now I'm actually starting to read books that I am like excited about. Because in the beginning, it was books that like I felt like I needed to read because I owned them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've loved the series. You've been at it for a long time. Has it been 2 years?
Yeah.
Longer? 2 years?
Yeah.
Because 6 books for each letter that's a lot. It takes a while to read.
Yeah.
In addition to everything else you're reading.
Yeah.
P. So do you need books? So books that you already own, starting with P. So you're not looking for ideas.
No, I'm in the middle. I've read 3 books for P.
Okay, you've got it. You've got it covered.
I'm starting my next book tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna have to be on the lookout for the letter P and see which books from your shelves that you're pulling for that.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's been fun.
It's a good challenge. It's very creative.
Thank you. It's fun. I have a good time with it.
Nice. Ooh, first Stephen King book. The Long Walk does sound scary. That's that kind of like realistic horror. Have you read that one yet, Michelle?
I haven't read this one. I don't even own it. I'm trying to own all of them, and I don't.
I try and pick them up from like Goodwill when I see Stephen King books because they're always there.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 7
You had to do that. Did you do it with audio?
Oh man, you would be immersed in that story.
A champ.
For sure. That's a lot. That's a lot of anxiety at one time. All right, so those are the 10 questions that I had for you. So now we have the would you rather questions. Try and keep it I mean, like I said, Scott the Bald Booktuber told me they were too easy, but then he edited his answer to say just one. So speaking of horror, would you rather read a paranormal horror or a realistic horror?
I'm thinking. I'm going to go with paranormal.
Okay. I like paranormal. I like when you don't know if there's like a realistic reason or if it's paranormal. Like that ambiguity is awesome.
That's what I like too. It's not like I read both, but I think I just prefer paranormal. And also going back to Stephen King, I guess, he does more paranormal horror, which I think is what I'm more into, is his stuff.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, would you rather read one book at a time or multiple? So you said you're reading 3 right now, but if you had to choose, which would you prefer?
In my ideal world, I would read one book at a time. That's my answer. I would really like to read one book at a time. I would love that.
Layer them on.
And then I would rather read one book at a time. I really would, but I don't do that.
And do you get confused with all of them if they're in the same genre?
I don't.
That's good.
I try to take I guess a social media break in between where I do a cleanse of social media for 20 minutes. And then if I'm reading 2 romance, then I'll jump into the next romance. Also, yeah, I guess that's what I do. But I really would like to be a one book at a time person. I just know.
All right. Number 3, would you rather read a friends to lovers or an enemies to lovers trope in a romance?
Enemies to lovers.
Enemies to lovers?
Yeah.
That wasn't even
no.
tough for you. That was easy.
It's so funny because like me and my husband are friends to lovers, but I prefer the angst of enemies to lovers. Like you just hate each other one day and then you're like, I am sexually attracted to that, and then you're just banging. Like, I don't know. It's
It's
so
that
fun.
tension, right?
Yeah. Like friends to lovers is so like, should we cross that line? Should we do like I don't care about that. I don't know.
Okay. Different kind of angst, I guess. Like
Yeah,
there's
I don't
still the
like that.
decision. They have to make the decision, but it's
Yeah, I
not
don't want I just want them to
torture.
Yeah.
All right. Would you rather read a single point of view or multiple points of view?
Multiple.
Is that the
Always.
same across all the genres?
Yes, especially in romance.
Gotta have the male and the female, or both
Yeah, or two
romantic partners,
female,
male,
two
male.
male, whatever it is. I want to know the other person's perspective on the same situation.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think you're gonna be surprised when you read Priest. Because I'm pretty sure, and I forget who they were in the chat that said that they're reading Priest right now, or just read it, or that she'll love it. But I think it's only the male's point of view.
Oh, see, I don't like that too, because I feel like a lot of, most romance, it's just the women's. If it's not multiple, then it's just the women, or like the main character, whatever it is,
Yeah.
So I would actually, I'm going to see how that goes.
I know. I'll be specifically interested in that aspect from you.
Yeah.
Different, right? Like I've heard that from a lot of romance readers, like they have to have at least dual POV for romance books. But you're right. Like when I read romance, sometimes it's just the female, but I've never read just the male in a male-female romantic book.
The only other one I could it's the Bromance Book Club. And it starts off with Gavin's point of view, but then it goes into Theo's point of view. So
okay. Yeah, I didn't think.
But it's like told from his perspective.
And he's trying to figure his wife out, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense that you only get his point of view, so you're confused along with him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's dumb.
Okay, so now number 5 is the question that I thought was going to be the most difficult for you.
Okay.
But we'll see if you agree. It might be a super easy answer.
Okay.
Would you rather only be able to read horror the rest of your life, or only read romance the rest of your life?
I'm going to go with horror because sometimes it has romance.
Sometimes romance has horror. But you're right. There's often a romance subplot in horror because it adds some of that tension to it. They have to save their lover or whatever.
Save their lover. Also, I am not one of those romance readers that necessarily needs smut. Like, I love a good closed door romance every once in a while. So, like, even if I'm reading a horror and it has like a little bit of romance, and like literally that's all I need.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. I think I like the variety too. Like, I think all of one thing I would be unhappy. But if I read variety, fade to black, closed door, spicy, super spicy. Yeah.
This was a hard question because I am in my romance era right now.
I know. And then when we were talking earlier, you're like, I'm in, summertime reading romance, and I'll, get to horror in the fall as we get close to spooky season. I'm like, that's why it's going to be a tough question. But anytime that you have to commit to only one thing, it gets really difficult.
Yeah, because I don't like, even when I was reading YA, I would usually read like YA contemporary, but even like that's not even like the same thing, like it has to do with so many different layers. So like this is hard a question, and you're right.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad. See, Bald Booktuber, they're not all easy questions. Well, those are all the questions on the Biblio Files interview. Michelle, thank you so much for being a good sport and going through those questions. And everybody that's been participating in the comments, thank you for all your input. It makes it a lot of fun. I'm still traumatized over the refrigerator scene from It, so I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the night.
Now I feel like I have to reread.
I know, now you challenge. See, you have your reads planned for the rest of the year, but we're going to shake it all up.
I don't know. I can do it.
Why not? What's a 40-hour audiobook?
Whatever, yeah.
It's just a cute little horror story. It's only 1,000 pages.
Little book.
Don't worry. All right. Thank you so much for attending and answering the questions. And thank you, everyone that tuned in. We will see you on the next episode of the Biblio Files. And if you are not subscribed to Michelle's library, be sure you do so. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.